Welcome to the Age Inappropriately show, where we know that perfection is a stupid myth and fitting in is not the goal. I'm Mandi, your hostess of Inappropriateness, and I'm so excited to hang out with you today. This episode brings you three mighty forces of authenticity and creativity. A mother and her two daughters that I am super duper crazy inspired by, and I'm pretty sure you will be too. Sally, Margo, and Shelley Tantau. The same day this episode launches, a monster huge dream of mine is coming true. Margo interviewed me on her podcast, Windowsill Chats, a show that I've listened to since the very first episode aired a few years ago. I met Margo in 2019 at an art business conference, and since then I have been taking classes from her. I have participated in multiple creative communities that she leads, and most recently she has been my mentor in an amazing program she offers called the Shared Studio Sessions. She encouraged me to start this show, and you can hear more about that on her podcast that I'm linking to in the show notes. Those of us who have been listening to Windowsill Chats have heard bits and pieces of Margo's journey and have fallen in love with her and her family. We talk about how each one of them has carved a path during their lives that most people would not find typical. And I wanted to ask Sally how she encouraged her daughters to become these powerhouse leaders who also have the most gracious spirit. So we talk a little bit about that too. And then my fangirl nerd fantasy happens when Margo pulls out a box that she said she hasn't opened in about 30 years. And she shares with us her original wire chair sculptures. Those were her first successful venture in art business. And I have been dying to see those forever, and I'm so proud that I'm able to share that with her other fans. So make sure you watch the video on YouTube or Spotify if you want to see that. The title is Tantau rhymes with wow, because that's how I remind myself to say their name correctly. And so much about these ladies is wow-worthy, as you will see right now. Enjoy the show. Hello, listeners and podcast land. For this episode, you might need to wear protective gear because I am so excited that I might combust into a cloud of glitter. I have the honor of hanging out with three super cool women today. Let's introduce you in the order of who I met first. You know and love her from the hit podcast Windowsill Chats. It is the lovely, talented, and inspirational Margo Tantau.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. So happy to be here.
And somehow the planets aligned, and I was able to convince her to bring along her glorious mother, Sally.
Thank you.
Seated in the middle. And her phenomenal sister, Shelley.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, ladies. Welcome. How did we manage to, the three of you, I believe, are very busy. How did we manage to find a time that worked for all of you?
You know, sometimes the glitter aligns.
Yes, the glitter aligns. I love it. Yes. So I highly recommend that, audience, you listen to the Windowsill Chats episodes that star each of these ladies, and you can hear their origin stories. So I'm not going to kind of repeat those types of questions. We're going to do some more sort of age and maybe just fun hangout type activities. So after, I've been listening to Windowsill Chat since day one because I knew Margo before it began, and have been a Margo fangirl since 2019 when I met her. But when I listened to you interview your mom in the fall of 2021, I thought, oh my gosh, I want to join that family. Maybe they'll adopt me. Not that I don't, love my own family, but I thought how amazingly cool. Your family just sounds so creative and inspirational, And then I listen all the time since Margo tells so many great stories about Vashon Island on her podcast. I have been actually looking at real estate listings.
I love that's how it starts, Mandi.
I am obsessed. Like, I totally want to live there and hang out with you guys and the pie guy, and
well, we do keep importing our friends to the island. It happens. So come on.
It is magical. It is a magical spot, and each of us are thrilled to be here.
Yes.
Absolutely thrilled to be here. Yes.
All of the pictures that you guys post just look like a dream. So I know Margo was the first to move there. And then how long did it take for you to convince the rest of the family to join?
It didn't take too long. The great thing about Mom and Dad's moving here was that the right house opened up. I'm here because of a dear high school friend and his husband, and then coming to them, I had another dear friend that lived next door to them, and their Mom and Dad's house is kind of the third point in the triangle. So
really, so like all your people,
they're
all your
surrounded
people on the same street.
Exactly, they're all walking distance, and have dinner together, and here, take some flowers from my garden. Right?
That just sounds like a dream.
And then
it is.
It is pretty great.
Picture like a little village.
And it had all the right space and garage space and all that. And then we got Shelley here because she found the ideal house too.
Are you also within walking distance, Shelley?
No. It's funny because I am on about 15-ish minutes away on another part of the island. And when the house became available, I was still in California, and I immediately messaged Margo, like, oh my gosh, you got to go look at this house for me. And she said, it's not on the way to anything. And I said, exactly.
Right.
It's been really wonderful to live this close to each other because it's been a long time. And I think it's been better than any of us thought it was going to be. But it is nice to not all be right on top of each other. I think it's healthy.
You live a healthy 15-minute commute away. That's nice. Yes. In case people that are listening don't obsess over and listen to Windowsill Chats all the time like I do, can you tell us a bit about where your beautiful island home is?
Oh, sure. So Vashon Island is in the Salish Sea, which is the Puget Sound also. If there's the Olympic Peninsula, then Puget Sound, and then Seattle and the mainland. And at the top of that is Victoria Island in Canada and Orcas and all those, islands up there. And then Vashon is at the very bottom. So it's closest to Tacoma, if you will. And I hadn't even heard of it until about, a dozen years ago. And this friend of mine said, oh my gosh, you're going to love it. It's just like where we grew up, which was a small town in Northern California. And the clincher is, which is the cool thing, you have to take a ferry to get here. It's only 15 minutes, but that doesn't include the line and the la 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 la. But it's a filter, if you will. And you can be in the hustle and bustle. You can just land. You can come in on a plane. You can come through town, and you take this 15-minute ferry ride, and then you're in this rural, beautiful island. And everybody says, if you ask somebody why they're here, really the most often spoken answer, I think, is community. The community here is it's just what we all strive for, is a place to feel like you're with like-minded people, even though you didn't know them 5 minutes ago. And the grocery store has every fab thing that you'd need, and the movie theater is awesome. It's about the size of Manhattan, but it has 11,000 people, so it's very rural.
Mother Sally,
Yes.
I listened to your episode. I listened to all of your episodes twice, preparing for this interview, and I just am more in love with all of you because of that. But in your episode, Margo said that you grew up in the Midwest, but she didn't say exactly where. And you mentioned something about going into St. Louis. Are you from Missouri?
No, I grew up in Decatur, Illinois. My parents were both from St. Louis.
Okay.
And so I grew up there, and then I went to the University of Michigan, and then I sped my way to California and started in San Diego and have just kept moving up
the coast.
Yes. San Diego, then San Francisco, then the Napa Valley. When we moved to the Napa Valley, the county had 24 wineries, and now there are 700.
Wow.
So it's changed dramatically,
Mm-hmm.
and we watched that growth. So, but when we moved there with only 24 wineries, you knew everybody. You just knew everybody.
Like living here.
Yeah,
You were there to see it all happen before it exploded.
Yes,
That's what it sounded like in your interview.
Yes.
And then they left. Yeah.
You got your teacher's degree and you were a kindergarten teacher. Why did you move to San Diego?
Yes, that's where I got. Oh, because my brother had done his interning there. And it just sounded like a really neat place and things that appealed to me, and water and beach, and which I certainly didn't have in the middle of Illinois.
Right.
So and he had just gotten married the year before. So he and his wife were in LA, and we were just a little ways below.
Did your parents freak out when you said you wanted to move to California?
No, not at all. They were great about it all the time. And my mother loved California. I think she could have moved in a moment's time.
Well, she was excited to have a new place to visit.
Yes. And she just loved it. She was they were wonderful parents. I was very lucky. Very, very lucky.
Did you live by yourself when you first moved there?
No. I had met a girl at a luncheon just before graduating, and we were at Michigan State, and
she was Michigan State.
She was Michigan State. I was Michigan. And somebody said, "Oh, you should talk to that girl down the table there." And so I went over to talk to her, and she was driving out, and she said, "Do you want to ride?" And I said, "You bet. Thank you very much."
They're still best friends.
Yeah. So,
like Thelma and Louise, you hit the road.
Hit the road, but she also brought one other person, so the three of us encountered driving west, and it's been great ever since.
Yes, I have similar stories. The day after I graduated college, I got in my car and drove to Las Vegas to become a bartender. My mom cried, though, in the kitchen, washing dishes the whole day before I left. She was not as excited as your mom.
My mom cried the day we all got in the car, because here I was going off with two strangers that spent the night. We all enjoyed each other, but she didn't know them any better than I knew them. So it was a great beginning to the West Coast, and I dearly love the West Coast.
And did many of your friends that you grew up with move far away like that, or were you sort of unique in that?
No, only one of us stayed in Decatur.
There's a lot for Decatur.
Well, and we are spread from an island, or from a little island just north of Boston to here.
Yeah, she has the unusual, at least in my mind, there's a group of, I don't know how many, you'll tell me. 9 of them that went K through 12 together. And they still, they just stopped getting together pre-COVID. Like every other year, they would all gather at, maybe in South Carolina, or maybe out here, or maybe, and they still, keep up with each other. And it's pretty special to have that.
That is very special.
Group of friends.
Wonderful.
Mom does not let people get out of touch. She's very good.
So you moved to San Diego. You were a kindergarten teacher there, right?
That was an experience because I hadn't had one day in kindergarten teaching before I was plumped into it. And it was
You didn't have to do practice teaching or anything before?
I did practice teaching in second grade. It was a bit of a shock because it was back before there were any aides of any kind. And I had 45 kids in the morning and 45 in the afternoon.
And how high were your heels?
And and we wore high heels. Crazy, nutty thing to do. I don't know how we ever survived, but we
45 kids by yourself that were kindergartners.
Twice a day.
Different ones in the morning from the afternoon. So 90.
Goodness.
And all in high heels.
And I kept saying, that's 180 parents.
Oh boy, to keep happy.
They were, for the most part, they were really good. They were innocent.
When I was in college, going through Mom's recipe box and finding one of those metal recipe things, and it was all alcoholic. It was all drink recipes from San Diego. Very necessary.
Yeah, you needed a good cocktail after wrangling 90 kindergartners. I did some substitute teaching between jobs one time, and they assigned me to kindergarten one day, and I had been, doing more like junior high before that, and they were babies. They needed help buttoning their, jacket. And I was like, whoa, I don't have children. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is it's not school really. It's, it was less, they're sitting at their desk and I'm doing a lesson. It was.
Yeah. You spend the first week teaching them how to sit on a rug and where the toilet is. Those are vital, important things, and how to stand in line. And they were so innocent back then. I'm not sure if all 4 or 5-year-olds are that innocent now. But now, when you've got a span of kindergartners from 4 to 5, you realize how much growth there is in 1 year. Because the kids that were born, for instance, in November that's California cut off that. We're a year older than those born.
I was always the oldest because I was born in November.
Huge difference. And I really realized it. And I was determined to have my children all born in November, December, and I didn't do that. But
and I was still the youngest in my class. How'd that work?
I want to hear the love story of you and Papa Tantau, please.
Oh, it's a good one. Buckle up.
Really do. You won't have time for anything else.
Oh, no. It's a good one. It's a fantastic story.
How did you meet and create these lovely daughters?
I went to a party of my friends the night before I happened to be leaving, and that man was...
The night before you happened to be leaving with your 2 strange girls to California, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And...
you met him in Illinois.
No. So there was a party, and this gentleman, Mr. Crocker, no relation to Crocker Bank, which is to come later, but Mr. Crocker was at the party learning that little Sally Simon was going to be driving to California and said,
why in the world haven't you asked me which banker you should be in touch with? And so he sat down and wrote a letter to Bill's father, because of course there weren't cell phones and all that lovely way of communicating. And he wrote a letter to Bill's father, and because they had met at conventions. So I no sooner arrived in San Francisco and where I was going to be, and I got a letter from Bill's father asking me if I would join them for dinner.
Because she went to San Diego and then San Francisco. So she was back home for a party before she went to San Francisco, just for those who might be confused.
Unless they care. And so anyway, yes, of course I wanted to go. And it was showboat and a great, great dinner beforehand. The thing that really attracted Bill to me was that I had my only car was an MG, and his first car was an MG.
What year?
His was a 54. Mine was a 52.
Awesome.
And so that was one thing. And then living in San Diego, I was fascinated by the Navy planes, especially when I worked one summer at the Hotel Del Coronado.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, that was fun. And I would go to the end of the Navy runway, North Island, and just stand there. I mean, if a plane would have missed, they would never have known I was anywhere near because I was right at the chain link fence and they were just barely above it.
Was it like Top Gun? Could you see them playing beach volleyball?
No, but they could probably see us doing that when they kept whizzing by our house on the beach.
San Diego when the ensigns got younger.
Yes. Yeah.
So Dad was a pilot. But we've left that part out. Dad was Army
Flight instructor.
So Dad was a pilot, so they had in common cars and planes. So that was a good start.
So we met on October 4th.
Where was he stationed?
In Alabama.
Okay. Was he in training then, or?
He was flying.
He was a flight instructor.
Oh, and he was an instructor then. Okay.
Yes. So he said he had somebody he wanted me to talk to. I thought it would be the wives of one of his friends. It was my mother. He had called up, invited himself to my parents' house, unbeknownst to me. I spent the next 2 days in bed. This guy's serious, and I can't even pronounce his last name. So the next time we met, I did go home for Christmas, and he did come, and he asked me to marry him. And I told him I was drunk. Asked me the next day, and he did. Next time we saw each other was when I went down at spring vacation, and I stayed very properly with his two best friends who were married and had their homes, and I stayed there. And then I got
Had you said yes by then?
Yes, I got
said yes the next day.
I got ring there. Yes, I said the next day. And so the next time we met each other was the week of our wedding, and we'd seen each other 21 days.
Oh my goodness.
They met each other October 4th, engaged December 25th, saw each other spring break, tried to figure out how to say each other's names, married, saw each other again, and got married July 8th.
Oh my goodness. And then did you move to Alabama?
Years have you been married?
62 years ago.
My parents have been married 62 years as well.
I love that. Good.
Yes.
Yes.
So you got married in 61.
Where are they, Mandi?
They live in Arkansas.
Yeah, we got married in 61 also.
Yeah.
Arkansas. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's such a great story. I love it. And so you got married and then you got to go with him and you didn't have to have the long distance, right?
That's right. That's right. Yes.
And how long were you married before you had Margo?
A year and 13 months.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about baby Margo.
Well, so she was born in a military hospital in Kansas. So
$7 baby.
Yep.
$7 baby.
Yep.
Delivered by a pediatrician.
I was glad he came along because I thought the nurse was going to, and she was having a little frantic attack. And I kept telling her she was all right. I'm sure she'd seen it many times.
And so how many years apart are Margo and Shelley?
3 years, 8 months.
Oh, okay. So then Shelley came along. Where were you living when Shelley was born?
We were in Highland Park, Illinois, just north of Chicago. And Bill was flying. And
TWA.
Yes. And
when did he move from military to commercial?
He went into banking first because that's what his dad did and that's what he thought he was supposed to do. But he was not meant to sit behind a desk until Macintosh computers came along.
And how did Margo and Shelley get along when they were little kids?
They really got along very well. And when they didn't, I learned a trick from a friend of mine, and I put him in the hall, for which there were no windows to see out of, and they had to face each other until on little tiny kids.
One end to the other end, and we had to just look at each other
until they could communicate and apologize and be friends again.
Oh
And
my goodness, that's awesome. I've never heard of that technique before.
Windowsill story.
they I don't think like doing that a lot, so they didn't argue a lot. They had their
avoided
moments, as all kids do, yes. But the neat thing is being here with them both, because they are closer than they've ever been in their lives. And as parents, there's no greater thrill.
Oh, that's great.
I think one of the beneficial things to us being almost 4 years apart is we never went to the same school at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't competing for friendships.
Yes.
And we fought over clothes and, who's sitting in which space and who's listening to which music. But in all, there's never been a big competition between us. And I know that we talked about this a little bit on the episode where Margo interviewed me, but Margo was very creative, and so we were like the artist and the scholar, but never was I made to think that I wasn't creative, and never was Margo made to think that she wasn't smart. So it was we didn't compete in that way either. It's like, I draw stick figures. She draws like an accomplished artist at the age of 8. And that's just how it was. And I am better at Trivial Pursuit than you are, because
I love Trivial Pursuit.
And you wrote poetry.
You want Shelley on your team when there's anything that anyone needs to remember, and you don't want me on your team. Unless it's Pictionary.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Do you guys play a lot of games?
It's a good balance. We play a lot of dominoes.
We play dominoes. We put together a lot of puzzles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My family does too. We used to get a new puzzle every Christmas. And
Yep. This one, yeah. We do a lot of puzzles, and we just have fun creating together now, I think. Because as somebody who works in a more scientific field, it's nice to have creative outlets.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll sit together and make earrings and watch true crime. And just, spend, I don't know, 3-5 hours go by very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And we laugh. We do a lot of laughing together.
I love that.
Yeah. But I really think that the fact that we never were in direct competition with each other really helped build a foundation where we just never needed to be.
Right. My sister's 5 years older than me, so I can understand what you're saying there. But I was envious of the sisters who were 1 or 2 years apart, because they seemed like they hung out more. My sister always outgrew things right when I was getting into them. She would be like, "I'm too old to play with Barbies now." Sometimes I felt like we were a little bit too much apart, but I can identify with what you're saying there about not competing, which that does help a lot.
We have always cheered the differences, as I'm sure that your parents have, and we have applauded their differences, which are fabulous. And while they each have a lot of similarities in many ways, they have some beautifully strong differences, and we applaud that. Always have.
Tell us about the adventures of Margo and Shelley's childhood.
Yes.
Well, Dad was a pilot, which was very convenient.
Right.
It made traveling super affordable.
Mm-hmm.
We also had a bright orange VW camper pop top wagon year thing,
Yes, Shelley mentioned that in her episode, and I want to know if you have a picture of it. I would love to see a picture of that.
Went places in that. We had the great good fortune of having a cabin in the mountains that was my grandparents, and we spent a lot of time every summer there. We went to Decatur, Illinois every summer, and we're very close with our cousins.
See your grandparents?
Yep, and our cousins lived there, and we went to camp in the summer. But really, I'd say that the icing on the cake was being able to travel affordably before there was frequent flyer miles and all that.
Right.
So, we'd have to go standby, and we wouldn't always make it, but it wasn't the Greyhound bus station it is today.
Yeah.
So we did have some good adventures, but we had a lot of fun at home too. We lived in a small town, and it was a good place to be. So we always had a good time.
We did, and good friends.
That's good.
Important.
Was your dad gone a lot because he was a pilot?
2 weeks a month, which is when you knew like when to sneak out of the house and stuff like that.
That's when you planned your shenanigans when dad was out of town.
We didn't get into, well, I didn't get into too much trouble. Shelley's another story, but
oh,
no, dad was gone a couple of weeks a month because he flew, that was his job. And so mom.
But in chunks. So he was home for 2 weeks and gone for 2 weeks.
Kind of, pretty much. Depended on
yeah, I mean, when he first started, he was doing little puddle jumping hops across from Chicago to the east, Dayton, Ohio, and little that sort of not short distances, as opposed to later on when he was flying internationally and would be gone for much longer time.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. But you guys did a lot of traveling. So you had your camper van. Would you go on long trips on that or just around California?
We drove
the longest
to Colorado.
Yeah,
that was a good one. Up the coast, and then across Dynasty National Monument, all the things you do.
Did you guys go to a lot of national parks or? Yeah.
We did.
Kind of outdoorsy vacations.
Lots of outdoorsiness, lots of hiking, lots of let's climb this. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lots of skiing. We're a skiing family.
Oh, really? Snow skiing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, we only have one cousin, and he was the manager at Keystone. And
oh, nice.
So we went there because he was there. And
you guys had all the hookups, airfare.
Because of that, my brother and his wife bought the first condo there that was ever sold.
Oh, wow. All right. So listeners, if you haven't heard the backstories, let me just do a little. The reason I decided that I would really love to interview the three of you, the name of my podcast is Age Inappropriately Show. So I like to talk about things that are unique, and you just seem, all three of you, like very unique and women who are brave, who have done things that are not typical of their peers. And it started with Mother Tantau, who was an interior designer in the 60s when there weren't very many people doing that job at all. And it sounds like you had the gumption to just leave home right after you graduated college, which I can identify with. And Margo has stories of similar, she has done a lot of things that were very exciting and unique. Shelley has been, you called yourself an activist or a natural born activist or something like that. You staged a sit-in in the 7th grade.
Much to my mother's chagrin.
Yes.
I must say that we both had a shop together. I started the shop with Margo and ended it with Shelley.
Oh, I didn't know Shelley was involved in the shop too.
Very much so. Margo went away and left me in a panic of how I was going to do all the things she was capable of, and I didn't know. And
Margo, how could
Shelley
you?
Came along, and it was the greatest experience because we all got to know each other in a whole different way.
Yes.
And I mean, I can say I got to know them differently, but I think that they got to know me differently too. And that was and that was in St. Helena, and we were this lovely little beautiful town in Napa Valley. So
is there anything that you can attribute this spirit of independence and guts to? Is that just running your family, or
your parents had to figure it out?
My parents, they arrived in Decatur because Dad just graduated from from all of his internship and residency, and went to Decatur on the spur of a moment. He was all ready to have his practice. In fact, had the invitations all printed to a celebration in St. Louis. And he got this opportunity to be the only urologist in the middle of Illinois, and off he went. So they did that.
But they did not come from means by any means. He went to college. He put himself through college. He was sent to college with a wicker suitcase and $10. And my grandmother had to leave. Yeah, my grandmother had to leave school in 8th grade to feed her family. So I think part of the chutzpah comes from maybe a little, we have to figure it out, and we will. And that probably, those stories at least, were things we always loved to hear,
And we were always encouraged, my brother and I, to venture forth and do things, and did so. And one of my big things with the girls was that you can do anything you decide you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay with us. That's what you should be doing.
And I think that's one of the most important things, is that despite, growing up and meeting each other in what was, the early 60s in a very, there was the beginning of a lot of tumultuous times here. They were fairly traditional in their marriage and family life, but and also Margo and I were always taught that we could do whatever we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
We were never taught that you needed to be a part of a couple to be complete. We were just given that permission slip to live our lives the way that it was best for us. And so, what a gift to be given from people who really were raised quite traditionally and were raising us fairly traditionally, to have that distinct departure during a time where it was not common.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that we both have really, it's as I said, a permission slip. It's really allowed us to blossom and make our own mistakes and forge our own paths of growth. So I think that's a really important foundation.
How did you become that way, Sally? Was it just the way that you felt naturally to encourage them to be individuals? It sounds like you were quite an individual yourself when you were younger. Or did you see other people raising their children in a way and think, I'm not going to do that?
Well, I think we all, as parents, look at other parents and their children and make decisions if I don't really think that's the way I want to go or want my kids to go, so on and so forth with that. But my move in going to San Diego was gutsy back in 1958. And that gave me that feeling to pass on to them, to go and do and see and enjoy this amazing world. And yet at the same time, to look out the window when there's a gorgeous sunrise or sunset and appreciate the gifts we are given. I got a picture of a praying mantis yesterday, and my response was, what a lovely gift. Thank you for sending that. Because that picture is one of the gifts we are given daily, but so many people never see it. There's so many kids that are raised in unfortunate areas of the biggest cities that don't know what a cow really looks like or how it acts. And we were trying to get them to be able to experience everything we could possibly do.
Yeah, I think another thing that was very important was education was very important, but exposure was a very important component
experience,
education. So getting us out to travel. And again, it sounds fancy to go to Colorado to a skiing vacation every year, but it was the cheapest vacation we could go on because the flight was free and the staying was free and the skiing was free. It would the water park. Exactly. And we had the great privilege of being able to fly to Europe at, for $14.
Wow.
And I might add, it wasn't so bad that it was before mileage plans and there were no upgrades. So the empty seats were almost always in first class.
Oh, that's terrible.
And so, but getting us out and exposed to the world was as important in education as going to school and learning the things.
Absolutely.
So that was really cool too.
Yeah, and as I say, I'm just such a promoter of the things that are given to us for free, like sunsets and a gorgeous flower, and to pick it up and look at it and think, how can this be this always next year? Why doesn't it come up with something that joined it from next plant over, and those sort of things? And we talked about those things a lot.
There was a huge dictionary, and would sit at the dinner table, and you'd say if there was a word that you stumbled on or you said, what does that mean? You were always sent down to the big dictionary to look it up. Right,
okay.
Right then. And either you learned not to ask because you didn't want to go to the big dictionary, or it was like, well, all right, that's cool. And those kind of, we always sat down to the table.
You taught them how to find the information for themselves.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we played dictionary game where we just have the dictionary and then open it up and pick a word on a page. And then we would
talk about
it. They'd say the word and we would try to guess what it meant, oftentimes because it wasn't a familiar one. And then we'd all talk about it and learn that way. So yeah, just always exploring.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Because your mom is an interior designer, do you guys feel the pressure when you're decorating your homes? Is she involved in your decorating, or
we always love that part? Shelley's wicked good. I have my interior design certification. We liked it. I out of
having
college,
your mom's
I went
influence.
into that kind of work, and yes, I think it was an amazing influence because she would. And I know we said this on the podcast before, but it was like she was talking about noticing the flower. You'd walk down the street in San Francisco and you'd be like looking up, noticing the architecture on the building, or, I'd go with her to a design showroom and she'd say, okay, she'd be flipping through these fabric wings and be like, okay, that one's good for Betty and Andy. That one's good for the Mondavis. And I'd be like, how are you keeping all that together in your mind? But she just always, her mind worked that way. And we were always exposed to it. Like everything else, it was brought into, we talked about it at dinner. She shared all that with us and we liked it. And we each have our distinct styles, but kind of really love setting up a home and setting up a space.
Mm-hmm. And Mother Tantau, do you judge what they do, or?
I want to tell a funny little story.
Please
so
do.
When I was moving up to the island 2 years ago, I got rid of all of my old furniture, and my sofa that I had had for 25 years was the most comfortable sofa ever known to man. And I remember saying, sending a text, I think, to the two of them, I'm thinking about getting rid of my sofa and getting a new one. And it was like, yes.
Thank God.
Because it was very rolled arms, and it was very 25 years ago. So I ordered a new sofa for the new space, and Mom was convinced that I had ordered I should have ordered the smaller sizes of the sofa, 100% convinced. And I was like, no, it's the right size. And so it came, she was like, you were right. It's the right size. And there was another one that and when I bought my house in Napa, what the gift I've gotten from her as far as this is I have a vision, like I can really see the possibilities. Yeah. And that applies to everything, people, spaces. And so I walked into this house and it had structurally everything that was on my checklist, but the walls were all mauve in varying shades.
Like the Golden Girls house?
With 25 years of smoke tar stains on top of them. and she went with me before we touched it, when they were still living there, when the inspection was happening. And I think that she had a conversation with Margo about like, I don't know.
What is she thinking?
And I like, you would never have known that that's what we walked into. And so I think that's one of that thing is like, we have these gifts that we're given. And also we are so comfortable in who we are, that we don't feel that pressure, like, what's mom going to think about this? It's like, I know my mom's going to love it.
Yeah.
I know that no matter what I create. So I mean, another incredible gift.
Yeah.
Yes.
That whatever we create is going to be fully supported and lauded. And so that's another one of the gifts.
Look what I created. So what the heck?
Two amazing women.
Yes.
That's why I was hoping to join this trinity together to delight our listeners.
Thank you, Mandi.
Trinity.
Tantau Trinity. So I'm assuming that you're retired, Sally.
Well, I am, only because there isn't a lot of ease to getting to a design thing, and designing has changed since I was doing the bulk of it. But I will design forever. I first designed when I was 5 years old. I would rake leaves into house plans. And so it's just part of me. My parents built a home when I was 2. And so that was just, I strongly believe that things we are really exposed to when we're very young, come around and say, hey, remember me?
They embed themselves in you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had the great good fortune when Bill was sent to Fort Riley, Kansas, to decide to go back to school. I was pregnant with Margo. I didn't know anybody at all. And I took myself over to Kansas State and walked in and talked to the person there and did design, and that's how my design started, really. And it was getting.
Did you sew or?
Never sewed. No, I don't sew.
If you want to talk about the unfinished projects,
I can't throw stones at that. My house is full of them.
But I do think that one of Mom's instructors when she was at Kansas State University was, I think, very instrumental in helping you form a lot of these ideas and independent thoughts, and helped in how you raised us. Talk a little bit about her.
Opal Hill was a fantastic human being, and I wish somebody in Manhattan, Kansas might remember her as I do, because she was truly one of the strongest mentors of my life. And she was determined that I was going to do design. And she literally would come to San Francisco and take me down to the design center that existed at that point, not what it became, and introduce me and take me into people. And she didn't know those people, but she had pizzazz and comfort and confidence. And she just marched me in there, and of course my eyes just sparkled, and I got more and more excited, and that's really what pushed me to do what I had loved doing literally all my days. I almost went in, took a class at Michigan, but I had taken my sophomore year, did not turn out with good grades. And so I ended doing education because I knew I could graduate with that.
Right.
Yep. Well, those things, those side steps along the way.
So you always kind of thought that you wanted to do interior design.
Always.
Okay. But you majored in education because so you could graduate. Yeah.
Yep.
I was wondering how you chose to take those classes when you went back to school, but you had been wanting to do that inside while you were a kindergarten teacher.
Yes, always.
Were you like the architecture of it, or
I love all of it.
You like shopping?
Greatest. I love going to the design center. It was very, very different than it is in today's world, because there's all these other places where people can get lovely fabrics.
Are there any places that we could visit today that still have your designs in them, or have they been redecorated? Or
well, I'm sure they've all been redecorated. The First Presbyterian Church, which is a New England style church in St. Helena, I did massive work on.
Stained glass windows.
Some of that, yes, lot. Well, the whole thing is basically still as I designed it, and I'm sure. I mean, I hope everybody's house isn't how I did it back that many years ago.
You designed the stained glass windows that are still in that church today.
Oh, yes, but I moved all sorts of things around. Margo.
Why is Margo pointing at herself? Did you design the windows? Wow.
Yes, I did.
You designed one of them. You didn't
I
do the
designed
great
the big
ones.
one.
Yes, yes, because she was.
How old were you when you did that?
I don't know, college.
At least after. You went with.
I mean, she said draw this, and so I did. So it was her idea.
But I do that a lot with her because she would be able to.
You like it. I mean, seriously, in college, she'd be like, "We need a rug with a great border for whoever it was." So I did that. So there was always, again, back to that belief that you could. So yeah, the windows and the lighting and all is mom's in that church, and the paint on the outside is beautiful.
Yes, and changed it and painted the whole outside, and it's just it revived it.
Margo, you have been making hats and jewelry. Do you have any samples to share with us today on the video?
I do.
Yay!
I've got a couple rings on. Shelley's got a ring on. I've got a bunch of bracelets on.
Oh, yes.
Up to the screen.
Turquoise.
Turquoise. Always.
And I am wearing some beaded lovely earrings that Margo crafted.
Sorry.
So cool.
Western weight felt.
Imagine chartreuse.
Imagine with liners that I got at the
fancy and like a beautiful feather on the side.
Little hand. You have it on back. Oh no, you don't. Hand painted feather and ribbons, and it's just all hand stitched and hand formed. Like it doesn't start looking like this. It's not like the ones like what's that Gigi Pip, that are so popular, but those are just stamped out. These are hand formed. What
kind of did you say? Felted wool?
It's beaver and wool felt. Most hats are made of. All old hats were made of beaver felt.
Those are gorgeous.
And these are a mix of beaver and wool felt, and a rabbit. So it makes them.
I heard you say so many times on the podcast that you have been dying to learn how to do this.
I've always wanted to. I've always been drawn to hats. Always. And I found this great class during the COVID. This lovely Lena Stein in Ireland, and She only teaches
So you
it
took
once
the
or
class
twice a year.
remotely, or did you go to Ireland?
Oh, that would have been nice. Remote.
Wow.
Yeah, just
COVID.
a long weekend. Yeah. So I one of the favorite gifts that somebody gave this Christmas was a hat making. He wanted a hat. My friend's husband wanted a hat, but she gave him she said, can he make it with you? So that's going to happen, which is fun.
Oh, that's fun.
And just a long weekend, and now you're able to make those amazing hats. How many have you made so far?
Just 2, but I have a lot more. I have a couple in the works right now, but completed 2 just because I didn't have my studio space for a chunk of time there. So
Right,
now
when
that
you
it's
moved.
back, the hat making accessories it costs some money though because you need some things to make them with. You need forms and steamers and things like that. So I've been slowly collecting that and expect more.
That's why I'm amazed that you were able to take a class remotely to learn how to do it.
Yeah, I was just like, well, let's just make this work. And I did. I just set up an ironing board in my kitchen and got a little lazy Susan and one hat form that worked. And I've just been expanding from there. So
That's cool. Are you going to make any fancy, like, church lady kind of hats?
Probably not.
Not really your style.
No, and it has been, but I just think there's so much more to that, other types of materials and other forms and things like that I'm just going to stay a little more basic.
Well, they're really, really beautiful.
Thanks, Mandi.
When Margo gets excited about or determines that she's going to make something and she knows what it is, she dives into it. She gets very excited about it. We all get excited about it.
Yes.
But we just watched this when she was making wire sculpture. She had somebody call and ask her to make a Santa Claus. And I was making things in the kitchen. And she sat down at the table, of which I could see completely. It was a pretty open plan. And she started with the boots for the Santa. And he grew.
In wire?
In wire. And he was, I wish I had this big around. And he grew and he grew and he was about that tall. And she looked at me and said, "Where is your can of old buttons?" And she whipped down and got those, and those became his belt. And they also went into his bag, didn't they? And that Santa stood there. I mean, he didn't fall over. He just stood there. It was
Just start at the feet.
so amazing. But
Do you have any of your wire chairs, Margo?
Yeah, I do. I have I ran over to the studio this morning and
Oh,
grabbed
they're
this
so delicate.
Yeah, with Mom. You know what?
I'm sorry you didn't tell
You're
me.
a good model, Shelley.
But they were like, these are so old, Mandi. But like there's a little armchair.
This is reminiscent of the sofa that I had for 20.
The rolled arm sofa.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
There we go.
The Gap asked me to do some wire displays for them one year, so that was an example.
Like the Gap, the Gap?
Yeah, the Gap.
The gap.
So that was an example of
Gap.
what that
Yes,
looks like.
you do. Just the
The
Gap. Oh, it has a leaf in the back. Oh, that's so fancy, and it's got great little things
One of my
dangling.
wire bugs.
Oh, that's great. Oh, those
There's a
are
wire
good
bud.
There's a
for
wire
our
bud.
neighbor.
Is that one of the ones that you made yourself, or is that one that was
That's
made by the
one of ones that I
manufacturer?
made for
Yeah, this
him.
is one of the prototypes.
One of the prototypes. We are looking at history here, people.
Oh, here's a I don't know what's on. Oh, that's a simple one.
Oh, I love that.
Just
That's
the-
just so
I used like the mesh for like espresso machine
Oh, wow.
wire. I used to know where all the cool wire places were around the around and around. Oh, here's it. Oh, this was a popular one.
yes. I love that.
It's like a little cafe chair.
Super cute. Yes.
And then I did a wire portrait of Cooper.
Oh,
What?
this Christmas or for Johnny's birthday, for his dad's birthday.
Yeah.
And it's
pretty big.
And
about
you,
that big.
You look at it and you know exactly that's Cooper. It's
Yeah.
not just
Right.
a wire face shape.
Did you, to make a portrait out of wire, do you like put nails into a board and draw it that way? Or is it
All
just all
freeform.
freeform? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's very exciting
It's
to
me
watch.
drawing, but I draw best in 3-dimension.
Right.
I really have always found that I can. Oh my gosh! There's something in here I forgot. Oh my goodness! Hold on, everybody.
It's like hunting for treasure.
Wow.
We're finding buried treasures.
Oh, that's great.
Ooh, what is that?
It's
Is that a boot?
a boot.
It's a vintage Victorian.
Oh my goodness. That is so cool. Like a Victorian lacy shoe / booty. That is really cool.
Full size.
Were those some of your mom's buttons that you stole?
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
Detail.
Yeah, those curly Q details
And
and
the heel on the
yes,
shoe.
it's so symmetrical and
Oh, there.
Oh
my
gosh,
goodness,
I haven't
Margo.
opened this box in like 30 years.
Well, I'm so pleased that you opened it for
I'm
us.
so thrilled you saved it. Oh, that's a gem too. Yes, I love that.
I have always wanted to see your chairs. This is like such a treat. Oh my gosh, I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mom wrote on this box, best wire chairs. Margo's
You
best.
saved the best ones in a box.
Except the ones that I have at home that
Oh, so you
Doesn't-
have your own
they
gallery
don't go in the
of
box.
the chairs.
Oh, they're in my big hut.
May never all fit back in there again.
Probably not.
It'll take some
Well,
doing.
you should be displaying them anyway. You should have like a shelf or something,
Yes, she really should have a shelf right here. You could
bookcase,
be
or
in this room.
You could have.
you could put some on top of that cabinet back there, and we could all
Oh,
enjoy them.
I
when
have a
we're
shelf.
watching
I
it.
have a shelf that it's just specifically for the Tin Man that she made for me. And
Oh, a
he's
Tin Man,
the Tin Man from
from Wizard
right
of
from
Oz.
Wizard of Oz. Yeah, wow. So, Shelley, I had the pleasure of attending your vision board workshop a few weeks ago, and you were generous enough to share some with me. I would like to share my screen.
For me, the lesson of vision boards is they help you visualize literally things that are in your head. So you actually bring them into your sight, and that will connect with a different part of your brain and continue to have you think about them in a different way than if you're not seeing the visuals. And so I think that vision boards are valuable tools for all sorts of creative projects, or just like for instance, this vision board is about my brand for my coaching business. And so it has things like women in circles, dancing, cheering people on, celebrating, a little magic, and maybe even a podcast. It's coming. And a margarita while you're working.
Oh, I didn't notice that before. I need to do that more often.
But play, be present, remember there is magic. And so this is something that I can then revisit and kind of reconnect to those pillars of what I want my brand to represent.
Yes. And in the class, we worked in Canva. Is that what you always make your
Yes.
vision boards
So
in?
I use Canva because they make it so easy.
Oh, yeah. I love Canva.
There are a lot of already created templates for vision boards. And this is about just my biggest dreams, my personal, and just being completely authentic, as evidenced by the small child giving the finger while swinging. And so my biggest dream is to incorporate human healing with animal healing, and to partner with a horse sanctuary to do that someday, somehow, somewhere. So this again just helps me keep focused on those biggest dreams, and by bringing them in visually into my brain, it just ignites different pathways than if you're just thinking them up in your head or speaking about them. And so there really is some scientific or some science behind vision boards and how they work on our brains. This is one that just, I'm going to the Paris Opera in May.
You are?
When I'm there with a group of friends. And so
I love this.
This was just
so
like
cool.
dream.
Is that what you're going to wear?
Yeah. Dolce and Gabbana is going to gift me a beautiful gown in a size 0, and I will wear it in my crown no. But yeah, I mean, so it's just igniting that dreamer, right? I just
Absolutely.
want to look forward to this night as just the most magical, kind of once in a lifetime experience. And so,
do you know what opera you're going to see?
I don't.
You just know that you're going to the opera in Paris.
I'm going. Somebody has bought the tickets for us, so I know that we have the tickets and when we're going. But
is it a girls' trip?
It's so yes, and it's a coaching trip for receiving coaching and also giving coaching. So I'm offering 2 immersion days while I am there, and I'm going with a coach who there's people who are going just for a coaching afternoon and dinner, and then there's a group of us who are in a mastermind together. So it's kind of a gathering of women from different groups. And the night before we go to the Paris Opera, my friend and coach Kim and I are going to see Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift and the opera in Paris?
In Paris, because we just need to dream biggest and make it happen.
Have you ever been to the Dior Gallery?
Yes.
I went to that this summer in Paris, and it was maybe one of my favorite days of my entire life.
Yeah. So
I was going to say you should go if you haven't been, but I'm glad that you've been.
I will go again. Absolutely. There's just something about Paris. It's Paris. And so this is another kind of dreaming business. So my business dreams vision board and more along those same lines of gatherings of women and really remembering connection and play and authenticity and yet dreaming of where that's going to grow into.
Did you have horses when you were young? How did you fall in love with horses specifically?
Well, I was a horse for the first few years of my life. We have had a horse here and there, and I've been exposed to horses.
That she whinnied more than she talked. She really did.
I did. I wore a ring around the dining room table when I galloped around the table, and I whinnied to the point of being able to communicate with horses. I didn't know what I was saying, but they interpreted it some way because they all reacted. But I went to horse camp, and I just was one of those little girls who was obsessed with horses from birth, and have had the great privilege of being able to support some really fantastic horse sanctuaries and horse rescue organizations. So that's, I believe that horses are really sentient creatures. You cannot fool a horse. you
like
can't
kids know immediately if you're a good guy or
my
not.
language. You can't bullshit a horse.
Yeah.
They will call you on it and make you pay for it.
Mhm.
So there's a great tenderness in bringing a healing human in contact with a horse, because there's no words necessary. And so there's magic there too. So this vision board that you have now is one of my travel dreaming vision boards. And of course there's Paris, but there's also road trips and country villages and luxurious pools and beaches and some Italian countryside. And so I believe that travel is as we talked about early, that education and exposure to other people's and other places is just such a great education. And
absolutely. Margo and I talked about that when she interviewed me. I went to England as an exchange student when I was in college, and that just really blew my mind wide open and changed. It was one of those pivotal experiences that changes your life, you know?
Yes.
And the more I love this, travel far enough, you meet yourself. Because it's true. I don't know what it is. It's something you have more time to reflect, or watching how you react to different strange situations, I guess, teaches you more about yourself. What is it about travel that is so?
I think a lot of it is that you're in a new place where nobody knows you, and so you can really show up authentically.
Yes.
And it's very mind expanding. And you've done a lot of traveling. What do you think?
Yeah, I never tire of reminding myself that our country is not the center of the universe, like some would have you believe. And I just really, Mom and Dad always impressed on us that we didn't want to travel like tourists. We wanted to travel like locals. So we would try and
be a traveler, not a tourist.
And I just embrace it so much, because it just puts things in perspective so much, that you're just one of your beliefs are just yours and not everybody's, and there's great people and generous people everywhere, and there's always something else to learn. And I love traveling as a reminder of that when possible, even if it's, just to a different local place, or again, getting out in nature or whatever it is. It's just a really good reminder that we are but a tiny speck.
So thank you guys so much. There are a million more things I could talk to you about. We might have to have, a second episode. The question that I want to ask all of my guests is, do you have a favorite thing that you feel is inappropriate for your age that you do?
Yeah, I'll start. I have a 15-year-old, which is inappropriate for my age. And it's the best damn thing I ever did, as far as
best thing to keep you young, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because nobody can figure out how old I am. And I'm older than they think. So I think it's about just showing up as you feel, not as your age.
Yes.
And as we talked about when we chatted the other day, absolutely embracing whatever that means for you. If you want to dye your hair pink, if you want to wear whatever you want to wear, if you want to skip through down that street, do it, 100%.
Shelley, do you have anything inappropriate for your age that you enjoy?
Oh, I think that women who are kind of self-discoverers wouldn't agree that it was inappropriate. They would say it's most appropriate to continue to reinvent and, move to a new place and start a new career. and go back to school at the age of, I don't even know how old I am anymore. But I'm starting another nurse practitioner certification program.
Wow.
Because I love school and I want to learn and I want to show up best for my clients and patients. And so I think that there's a lot of people in the world that get stuck in the shoulds and what they're expected to do. And I hope that by the age of mid 50s to mid 60s, all of them are saying, wait a second. I hope they do it earlier, but if they haven't done it by their mid 50s to mid 60s, the shoulds are not always the best life. So
absolutely, that's the point.
I'm here saying live a life that you choose.
Amen, sister.
And I'm sure there's people that feel that's inappropriate.
Exactly. When I say inappropriate, that's, we're encouraging inappropriateness.
It's an amazing thing when you get into your 80s because a lot of younger people think you're too old to be with. And you go to a party and those people go off with their friends, and I can be standing with Bill and talking to him. But I reach out to people and don't let them allow that to happen. And that's part of who I am.
Yes.
And there is wisdom in years. And if you don't pay attention to those people, you miss something that is
absolutely
valuable.
I've always loved hanging out with my grandparents and my great aunts and, listening to all of their stories. I've always been, one of those children at the knee that loves to listen to all of the tales of family and the history of our, people. So, your very naughty daughter said how old you were, when you were on her episode. And I cannot believe it.
Thank you.
How do you stay so young? You look fantastic. I would never believe that you're in your 80s at all.
I think we all have to say thank you to good genetics.
Okay.
Because mom never stops moving.
She never stops moving.
Really take care of herself.
But nobody's ever thought that we were the age we were either.
Right.
So genetics and just
Botox, baby.
That's right, sister. I love the Botox.
And just again, refusing to believe that age means something.
That's right.
I have you around me to help me be there. And Cooper is really the reason
we 170 crunches every morning, and she always has.
What? 170 crunches every morning?
Yes,
I think I could do the many in a week.
I want people to know that part of those are counting backwards from 100 by 3, and then another set is counting backwards by 7, and then when I get to 0, I turn around and
so her brain is
do the multiplication.
So you're doing math and crunches at the same time.
Some things I didn't inherit.
Oh my Lord. The more I learn about you, the more you are my hero.
Physical and mental gymnastics at the same time.
That's right. All right. I know you guys have to go. Thank you so much.
Love you, Mandy.
Thank you so much, Mandy.
Mandy, this was really fun.
I am moving to your neighborhood.
Thank you.
Do. Hey, come on over.
All right. I'll be there as soon as I can get there. Because
I have learned more about my daughters today, as I did when Margo interviewed Shelley and vice versa.
Yes, I love those episodes. The Swissies.
I learned so much about them. So I'm very grateful for these things. Thank you so much, Mandy.
Oh, my goodness. No, thank you.
Really.
All right, ladies. Happy New Year.
Thanks,
Happy New Year.
Thank you so much.
Here's to good health.
And you
peace,
as well.
Peace in our world.
Oh, please. Yes.
Take care of this.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't care what they think about me. I'm gonna age inappropriately.